Okay, it is, by my cell phone, it's 4 p.m. on Friday, November 18th, so I'll call the special meeting of the Douglas County Board of County Commissioners in order, and ask that you all stand for the Pledge of Allegiance to be led by Commissioner Danny Tarkanian today. Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you. Yesterday, we had our regular meeting, and Commissioner Rice is actually out of the country, and so he was not able to stay with us for the second half of the meeting, and I don't know that he's going to be in attendance today. He's not on Zoom, so that everybody else will be envious of him. I do know that him and his wife are on a cruise in the Caribbean, enjoying warmer weather. And yesterday, while he was in port, he was able to be with us, but his ship sailed during the middle of the meeting, and we lost connection. So I don't know that he's back in port today and able to join us. So, but that's fine. We can still move along with the 4 commissioners that we have in attendance today. So we'll go into public comment. We only have one item on the administrative agenda today. We're here to canvass the vote. That process is basically getting the results from the clerk treasurer in regards to what happened in the most recent general election, and then having to submit that to the Secretary of State in compliance with NRS. But if there are individuals in the audience that wish to offer public comment on other items, we'll entertain that at this time. Public comment is limited to 3 minutes per speaker unless additional time is granted by the board chairperson. The Board of Commissioners does use timing lights to ensure that everyone has an opportunity to speak. You will see a green light when you begin and a yellow light which indicates that you have 30 seconds left and should conclude your comments. Once the light turns red, we ask you to please be quiet and sit down. In addition to opening public comment will also be taken on administrative agenda items that are identified for possible action, and closing public comment. As I mentioned earlier, we only have one item on the calendar on the administrative agenda today. If you plan to speak on a specific item that is not on the administrative agenda and identified for possible action, then please provide your public comment at this time. So at this time, public comment will be taken on those items that are within the jurisdiction and control of the Douglas County Board of County Commissioners. We ask you to please silence your electronic devices so that we don't interrupt anybody. When you come to the podium, we ask you to print your name so that we can have that clearly to put that in the record. State your name, and your time will begin when you've stated your name. So at this time, we'll entertain opening public comment. Is there anybody here that wishes to offer opening public comment? Since none, Ms. Johnson, do we have opening public comment available on Zoom?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Marsha Johnson for the record. At this time, there's no opening public comment.
Okay, well, this is getting easy today then. So we'll bring it back to the board, and we'll go into the agenda. For possible action, approval of the proposed agenda. I'll at this time entertain a motion to approve the agenda as presented.
So moved. Second.
Okay, motion by Commissioner Noasad, seconded by Commissioner Ingalls to approve the agenda as proposed. Sensing no further discussion, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Motion passes 4-0. We have no liquor board stuff today, but we enjoy your attendance. Kind of isolated and over there, kind of almost in a hole there. But okay, we'll go into the administrative agenda then. So item number 1 for possible action, discussion, and canvass of returns from the November 8th, 2022 general election, including entering an abstract of the results in the board's records and order the county clerk to certify the abstract as well as transmit a mechanized report of the abstract to the Nevada State Secretary of State in compliance with NRS 293.387 being presented by, and she's part of this, newly elected Clerk Treasurer Amy Perkins. It's
Thank you,
all
Chair.
yours. Oh, okay. Well, I've been informed that we do have Wes not on Zoom, but at least on the phone, so he may have questions.
Wonderful. Thank you, Chairman and Commissioners, and happy Friday afternoon. I appreciate you guys coming in and taking the time to go over the results of the recent election. I want to start by thanking my staff that have just, I say it all the time, but they're rock stars. I couldn't have done this without them. They really rose up and worked a ton, and I'm very excited for them to have the weekend off. I also want to thank all the election workers. Douglas County is an amazing place to live, and even though I've been here almost 20 years, watching the election workers step up and basically volunteer to be paid $12 an hour to work 15+ hour days because they care so much about this community is just inspiring. So I want to thank all of the election workers that came out and made it fun. We had fun. Every time I looked around, we were smiling and just having a good time. And that makes it a lot easier to run an election in a community. And also, I want to thank the community for turning out and for being flexible during the snowstorm when we were moving things around from outside to inside and trying to get the lines where they needed to be so that business could still be conducted in some of the vote centers. So I appreciate everyone that just helped and made it such a success. Today we are here to request that the Board of County Commissioners certify the abstract of the results so that I can transmit them to the Nevada Secretary of State's office in compliance with NRS 293.387. The election summary report and the statement of votes cast were uploaded as supplemental yesterday. I believe all of you received a copy, and it is available to the public online as supplemental under the agenda. At this point, I'm just going to open it up if there's any questions from the commissioners.
We'll start down at the end. Commissioner Tarkanian,
I
you
don't
have
have
questions?
I don't have a question, but I voted on Election Day when it was snowing outside at the community center. And what an incredible operation. You had 60 machines, I understand. The lines weren't too bad. There were a lot of people there, but because there was such great organization and so many machines, we were able to get through there quickly. I've never been through a better process of voting, and I love to vote on Election Day, so I commend you and your staff.
Thank you, I appreciate that.
Commissioner Ingles.
Amy, are we still using Dominion voting machines?
Yes, sir.
And that's throughout the state?
I apologize, can you repeat that? They're what?
Okay. And who establishes what the folks who are working on your voting?
So the previous question was whether or not the Dominion machines are being used universally of all 17 counties in the state of Nevada.
No, they are not. So each, in 2017, the Secretary of State provided funding to each jurisdiction to select the machines that they would like to use. And of course, Kathy Lewis was the clerk treasurer at that time, and Dina was still here, and they chose Dominion. So it's jurisdiction by jurisdiction.
Well, the reason I ask is because something froggy was going on somewhere, probably in Clark County. I know that you have the capability to track pretty accurately how many people vote, and if you have all of a sudden 80 or 90,000 people start voting here, you know that something's wrong. But in the $15 an hour that folks, who determines that? Is that the state?
The $12 an hour, I honestly am not sure exactly who sets the $12 an hour for the election workers. Cynthia, are you aware of who does that? Is it Human Resources or is, okay.
Yes, it was set by Human Resources.
be possible to pay them a little bit more? I mean, it's,
I will say, Commissioner Ingalls, that a lot of the people that work the election would do it for free. I'm not saying that they don't deserve more, and I'm not saying we shouldn't visit that. I'm just telling you that a lot of people ask to volunteer, and we can't have volunteers. They do have to be paid, so definitely something we can look into, but I didn't hear anyone complaining about the $12 an hour. They're just true patriots that want to be a part of the election.
well, by the time we have another election, we'll have a lot of inflation come through. So, something to think about. Thank you, Amy.
Thank you, Mr. Ingles. Commissioner Nosat, any questions? So, thank you. I have a number of questions. And I too took the opportunity to, I actually voted on the very first day that voting was available. A couple of reasons. Number one, I wanted to see how the operation went from day one, and also and see how the turnout was as well on day one. That's kind of a, I know you practice in advance of that, but that's kind of the telling thing to see how operations are going and try to figure out what problems might occur. But I was, and then I took several opportunities during the process also to just randomly stop at a voting location, whether it be here or the community center. Very, very impressive operations. And then when I went by the community center on election day, I concur, and my comments are ditto of what Commissioner Tarkanian is expressing. I was concerned because it was snowing. When I first visited TRE early in the morning, it was not snowing, and I was hopeful that we weren't going to incur snow that day at 8 o'clock in the morning, because obviously that could possibly tamper the outcome or turnout of the vote. But TRE was incredibly impressive in the way it was operating. I visited the community center and was pleasantly surprised to find that everything was indoors in the gymnasium, and so we didn't have any voters standing outside and by that time it had started to snow, and so it was building up. But everybody was that I talked to was very impressed with how fast things were going, how organized it was, and very impressed with the operation. So I couldn't say more about how pleasant that was and how great a job you and your staff and the volunteers did throughout this whole process. With that being said, I look at this, and I'm looking at page 1 here of the summary report, and election day, well, early voting is identified, if I'm not mistaken, as early voting on this sheet is identified as people that are voting by machine. Is that correct? And so that would be total 5564 for those 2 weeks that we had early voting.
That is correct. That is in person on a machine.
Okay. And then the election day, that's column number, or the first 4707, that's the actual physical people that came in at any one of the locations, accumulative, on election day itself.
Correct. That
Okay.
is
What
in person on a
that's,
machine.
that's still an incredible number to try to move through polls. What do we have, 5 locations that day?
Yeah, almost, yes, Chairman. Almost 3,000 of those were just at the community center.
Okay. Well, that was impressive then, if that's the case. Obviously, what concerns me is this 19,000, close to 19,000, 18,985 that are either drop-offs or, as I understand it, people who put their ballot in the mail to physically be processed and time-stamped, date-stamped, and then through our U.S. Postal Service. That's correct? So that number includes all of that?
Correct. So the 18,985 that are categorized as mail-in ballots are any person that voted on a paper ballot. So even the people the voters that came into our office and requested a paper ballot, and we handed it to them right there and then, They filled it out and handed it back to us. It is still classified as a mail ballot. So any paper ballot is considered a mail ballot. And of those 18,985, about 10,000 of those were received via the mail. 8,985-ish were dropped off at a polling location either during early voting or on election day. And I will say that about 6,000 of the drop-offs we did receive on election day at our various drop-off locations.
I'm sorry, run that last number by me, the ones that were dropped off actually election day,
About 6,000.
6,000 that were dropped off election day. So prior to election day, the 12,000 then that were dropped off prior to that or you received in the mail, you have the ability, there's a date somewhere in that 2-week process, you have a date where you can actually start taking the ballots. After you verify the signatures, you can take the ballots and what is it called?
Deconstruct.
Deconstruct the ballots. So that's where you separate the envelope that has the signature on it after you've verified the signature, and then you're separating it from the ballot so that we maintain the sanctity of the secret ballot through that process. Is that right? So they're never able to be matched up again. Is that?
That is correct. They are, when they are deconstructed, and that's the importance of the secrecy sleeve that most people don't understand. The secrecy sleeve is, the ballot is inside the secrecy sleeve inside the envelope. So when we take them out, we take the secrecy sleeve out. That way we're not seeing the ballot and it corresponding with that envelope and the person that voted it. And then we set those envelopes aside, and then we take the ballots out of the secrecy sleeves.
Okay, so so when did you, so you had how many dropped off again on actual election day? So you weren't able to deconstruct those on election day. You had to wait until the Wednesday, Thursday, Friday, Saturday process to do that, right?
Correct.
And how
So
many was
the
that?
drop-offs on election day is all hands on deck, like you said. We had almost 5,000 people vote in person. Therefore, all the staff, all the election workers, we were all at the polling locations to assist people in voting in person. So at the end of the day, we collected all of the various locations, brought those mail ballots back, and it wasn't until the next day that those were emptied and we started to actually batch them and start the signature verification process. So,
And you do verify every signature that's
yes.
that's on there. Do you feel like that's an adequate, maybe this is more of a personal question than a clerk treasurer's an official position. Do you feel like that's an adequate method of checking the validity of the ballot?
You mean visually with my staff doing it? I do. I feel like the staff that does that, and there's only 3 or 4 of us that do that. I was in there doing that after the election day, just to, excuse me, just to speed along the process. I think it is very much a reliable way of doing it, as long as you know the staff members that are doing it and you trust them.
Okay. Couple of other questions. The ballots you received, how many ballots did you actually receive in the mail after Election Day that had the proper time stamp or date stamp by the post office?
I didn't do a total. I can tell you, on the 8th of November, we received, which was Election Day, we received 480. On the 9th of November, we received 346. On the 10th of November, we received 3. And on the 11th of November, we received 30.
And all of those were able to be validated that they were postmarked by Election Day?
I was cheating and looking at Erin, my elections administrator. She says yes.
Okay. Were there any that you received in the mail after November 8th that were not time-stamped or date-stamped by the U.S. Post Service with the appropriate date?
Yes, on the 10th, 10th of November, we received 21. On the 14th of November, we received 30. On the 15th, we received 22. And on the 18th, we received 1.
So those were invalid ballots?
Correct. When we receive those, we don't even go through the process of deconstructing them because they're invalid. Therefore, we do not even open them. They
See,
get
that's-
put into the voter's record as a rejected ballot because we received it too late.
That's what scares me about this whole process of mail ballots. is we're dependent upon another entity, unfortunately, the U.S. Post Office, that is not necessarily gaining a great reputation through this process. You know, and then I'm also concerned about the fact that we may have voters. We have a lot of different mail drop-off places in the county, not just one central post office. So, for instance, I know that in Topaz Ranch Estates, if you put your ballot in the mail down there, it's got to go to Wellington, which is in Lyon County, and then I believe it goes to Reno, the processing center. So we don't know if those ballots are being postmarked in Wellington or in Reno, and it could be days before it gets up there, and those people are losing their opportunity to vote and have a say in the election, and that's disappointing to me.
One of the, I apologize, one of the.
And I'm not being critical of you. Of
No,
course. I
and
want you to understand that.
Fully understand that. One of the processes that we do have in place, that has been in place since 2020, is the roaming Dropbox that we offer in the different jurisdictions. And so we try to mitigate the fact that assist people that don't want to use the Postal Service to ensure that their vote does count and does get to us in a timely manner. We do go out to Thierry, we go up to Indian Hills, we go up to Tahoe. We try to go to the various locations to ensure that we're there for a couple hours every other week, or every week of early voting, so that if you want, I don't work for the post office. I can't say what's happening at the post office, but I know that if your ballot goes into one of my drop boxes, it will be counted.
Well, I mean, see, it's like Commissioner Noasad lives in North County, and that they get their mail from Carson City Post Office. So if they were to put their mail in the mailbox up there, then it would go to Carson City, potentially then to Reno, right? Same old process. That's a scary process to me, and I think it's causing a lot of distrust by our voters that I hear from. The other concern I have, and I'll get back to you, Commissioner Noasad, is there is and I've heard this from another. In fact, believe it or not, I heard it from my wife this morning. Okay, she said, "Mark, I have no way of going online. How do I find out if our votes count?" And we voted on the very first day of voting, and yet today we still can't determine whether or not our votes actually counted, and that leads to voter apathy, voter mistrust, and once again, this is not any comments to your office. I hope you folks understand that this is no reflection on our clerk treasurer, okay, and what we did in this election. But to my knowledge, we are not able, she couldn't track whether or not we voted. Is that true of our entire county?
It's true of the entire county, but it is a county by county issue. So let me explain a little bit. The state of Nevada is a bottom-up state. It's one of 4 or 5 states that's left that is a bottom-up. It's something the legislature has been working on, I believe, since the 2019 legislative session to get us to be a top-down state. What that means is each jurisdiction within the state oversees their own voter maintenance software, and then we transmit it to the Secretary of State, who houses it. There is a plan in place. We are very much involved in those meetings to get us to the point where we have a statewide voter maintenance software. But until we're at that point, the software that Douglas County uses, it's also the software that Carson City and Lander County uses. Our software does not allow for that, the ability for that information to go to the Secretary of State's office. It doesn't transmit until I have finalized the election in our software, and I can't do that in our software until the Board of County Commissioners, finalizes and certifies it. So my staff is prepared to stay late tonight. We plan to do it tonight to make sure that that gets transmitted, and so tomorrow and this weekend, voters can see their vote. Unfortunately, it's just the software that we use does not allow for that. The software that we use does not allow for a lot of things. It was not created for the type of elections that are now mandated on us by the state. It is something that my staff is fully aware of, and we've already started reaching out to vendors to get quotes to be able to bring before you, hopefully getting a new software in place prior to the 2024 election so that this is not an ongoing issue.
So the first time our voters in Douglas County are going to have an opportunity to really verify the fact that their vote counted somewhere for whoever they voted for will be hopefully tomorrow or perhaps Monday?
Either late tonight or tomorrow. No, it transmits automatically to the Secretary of State's office. It's an overnight, that's how our files are transmitted. It should be there, if not tonight, by tomorrow morning.
Okay. So what you're suggesting for a correction to that issue is we're going to need to, you would recommend we update our software? Not our machines, but our software?
This is totally separate from how we vote. This is our voter maintenance software. This is what houses all of your voter information for the county. This is the software that it's when you go to vote, we have a check-in process. Say you were to vote in person, we have the check-in process. When you walk in and we're verifying your information, it's through the voter software that we have. It's totally separate from the voting machines that we have that you vote on. Two completely separate companies.
Well, I could say that it's important to our voters for ensuring that they trust the system and not having voter apathy. I'm concerned about voter apathy because I look at our numbers and 71%, and I consider voting to be your first civic duty as a resident and citizen of Douglas County and of the United States for that matter. But certainly we've enjoyed higher numbers in the county, and so this 72% disappoints me in a very important election. Not that all elections aren't important, but we have two, as I understand it, we're going to have two election cycles because the state legislature has mandated a presidential primary and then a regular primary in 2024.
We will have 3 election cycles in 2024. There
Yes,
will be
but I mean, okay, for our next budget cycle is what I guess I'm talking about, 23, 24, which we're going to be approaching in the next couple of months. The budget cycle for 23, 24, that software is going to need to be purchased in that budget cycle so that it'll also be helpful for the general election in 24. But that we have 2 election cycles in this next budget cycle.
Correct.
Is what I'm saying. So I would encourage you to please try to find out what it's going to take to get that system in place so that we can ensure our residents are much happier and able to check their votes. So I would pass that along to the county manager as well, as we need to look at that number so that we can get that into the next budget cycle in coming up in April, right? March and April for 23, 24. So to me, that we can't, I hope the rest of the commissioners can't, see that as a very important issue. Anyways.
If I may,
Sure.
call up your counterpart in Florida and see what they did.
Yes, sir. I will tell you, I've had so many people say to me, why don't we have our results like Florida? Florida does not have an all-mail ballot state. So that is not me. That is your legislature. Take it up with your legislature.
And I'm hoping you're going to do that. I know that you love that activity. I hope and I encourage you to participate with our state legislature in cleaning up some of these. Now, the other thing is that ballots have to be cured by the Monday afterwards. So this last Monday, right? So a ballot that you get in on the last mail drop off on Saturday has to be cured by Monday, but you have no method of even reaching out to those voters to tell them that their signature's not valid.
So I will tell you, it's very unfortunate that the people that mailed ballots that we received on Saturday, the 12th, we sent them letters on Monday because we did not have phone numbers or email addresses for some of them. But by law, we have to send the letters. So they received the letter maybe Wednesday, Thursday, and Unfortunately, it was too late for them to cure it at that time.
Did they do a good job of curing the ballots that did have an issue? I mean, how many ballots probably went uncured? Any idea?
I apologize, I did not pull those numbers.
Okay. So Commissioner Noah, I think I have
I have been
instigated
patient,
some
yes.
minds, some questions.
All right. Then my first question was about being able to find out now whether my vote was tallied or not. The second question was the secrecy envelope. If the ballot's not in that secrecy envelope, does it fail?
No, sir. We, you have to have the return envelope. The secrecy sleeve that the ballot goes inside the envelope, if the secrecy sleeve is not there, it's still a valid ballot and we still accept it.
Thank you.
It's more for the comfort level of the voter than it is about valid or invalid.
Okay, did my questions raise any other questions, gentlemen? Okay, so Florida is no bail ballots whatsoever.
Well, not so whatsoever. There are, it's go
absentee
back to
ballot.
2018
Yeah.
or even prior to that, perhaps in Nevada, there are qualifications in order to receive one.
Okay, Commissioner Rice, I know you're online. Did you have any questions? Are you at the tiki bar?
I don't think he can hear.
Yeah.
He said he's connected, but having
Okay.
trouble hearing.
Okay, well, I guess he can ask questions of you privately when he gets back. So, without further questions from the commissioners, this is an item for possible action. So at this time, we'll open the podium for public comment on item number 1. Is there any public comment here in chambers?
Hello, Mr. Chairman. Sean Meehan for the record. I'm a member of the Executive Committee of the Douglas County Republican Party and the Resolutions Committee Chairman for the Nevada Republican Party. I appreciate the comments and questions that you've asked and the answers the clerk has given. As somebody who in the military carried dead soldiers home from combat on my cargo aircraft to protect our rights under the Constitution, the people whose ballots didn't count because the Postal Service did not do a good job angers me to my core. All we can do here is document it and forward it up with the clerk's report and hope that during the legislative session we can take some action. So I appreciate that you've started that process. I want to thank the clerk. At a public meeting last week, she touched on some problems with the Postal Service. I know they are not in her department, but she still took proactive action to go seek out answers and try to get as many ballots delivered as she could, and I really appreciate that she did somebody else's job for them. As an anecdote in history, in 1920s, mail trains were being robbed, and the Postmaster General asked President Harding to send in the Marines, and he did. And when the mail was getting stolen, they were told by the Secretary of the Navy that one may die, but the other will get the robber, and that the mail will get through. And when our Corps goes in, the guards over the mail, it must be delivered or there must be a dead Marine at the post of duty. Obviously, we don't take mail as seriously as they used to. We know, based on conversations, that some people drop their stuff in the mail. The Secretary of State's website, for whatever reasons that we need to actively fix, did not show them a way to properly trace it, and they didn't arrive. That's not acceptable that my vote counted and somebody else's did not. I just again want to thank everybody that played a role in this and did a great job with what they were given to work with. And I'm angry that you're being asked to codify the results of this and disenfranchise some of your voters and constituents, and we don't even know who those are. I don't know what other actions you can take other than to sign it and send it up, maybe with some notes attached, and some of us can attack it in the legislature in February. Thank you for your time, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you. Is there any additional public comment here, chambers? So, gentlemen, this is Phil Sloss. He spoke during closing public comment yesterday, and we weren't able to see you, so I know you were online, and so right? Weren't you there?
You speaking to me,
Yes.
Chairman Gardner?
No?
No, I'm Tom Dew.
Oh,
I'm a member of the Douglas County
okay.
Republicans.
My
Party.
bad, my bad, my bad.
Okay,
I'm
no problem.
sorry to interrupt you.
But
Go
we
ahead.
see each other at meetings all the time anyway. Yeah, no, I appreciate that. Appreciate that. Anyway, I would like to echo the comments of both Chairman Gardner, and Sean Meehan, about, just what's going on, especially with mail-in ballots. I checked today on the State of Nevada's website about tracking my ballot, and it's still not showing it as recorded. And I did mail my ballot in the last week of October. So I am concerned about that because it appears maybe that I've been disenfranchised. I don't know that yet, but we'll see what posts, because I think some things are posting tonight, like you said, and maybe that will catch the system up, and I'll see myself there. But it's been almost a month since I voted, so just concerned about that. And I just want to say that I appreciate what everybody did for our election, but I still think we have to, if there is issues with the Postal Service, we need to hold them accountable and find out what went wrong. I think that would be a good opportunity for Douglas County to explore that in a deeper way. So anyway, that's all I have to say. Thank you.
Thank you. Our new official county recorder.
Who is not here speaking as the recorder-elect. Thank you, Chairman. Shawneen Guerin, for the record. I actually just want to offer up a prime example of a personal circumstance where this is not just rhetoric and angry people speaking for the sake of speaking, but my son, 20 years old, voting for his second election. He's off at college, so he had a mail-in ballot. He dropped his mail-in ballot off at the Walnut Creek Post Office in California, just over the mountain, and it has yet to be accounted for. And that's as recently as roughly 20 minutes ago when I went downstairs. So no, you cannot go online and search to see if your ballot has been received, but you certainly can reach out to the clerk's office and they can look that up for you and tell you, yes, it was counted, no, yes, it was counted, yes, it was received, no, it wasn't received. To date, it's not been received. And he made it a point to not, he lives in an apartment complex. He didn't want to drop it off in his outgoing mail with everybody else's. And so he took it to the post office and dropped it off personally. Has yet to arrive. So there's a perfect data point of actual disappointment. Thank you.
We should be pleased that you didn't lose by one vote, right?
Okay, well, while we're at it, he did say to me, "So Mom, does that mean I didn't get to vote for you?" I said, "No, son, you voted for me."
Okay. Yep. So things that we need to take a look at, hopefully correcting. Is there any other public comment here in chambers? Since there's no other public comment here in chambers, is there any public comment online? Ms. Johnson?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Marsha Johnson for the record. At this time, there's no public comment online.
Okay. And I keep forgetting that we have Mr. White Rice. Can he hear us? Does he want to make comments or?
Wes, can you hear us at all?
Okay, very good. So that's the close of public comment. We'll bring it back to the board. Any further comments, questions, or observations? Commissioner Ingalls?
We currently have a government and an administration that is absolutely pathetic. And it is hoped that the new Congress will pay more attention to what everybody was talking about here. And I think collectively, there's a lot of people in the country that feel the same way you do. And hopefully, when the new Congress is in session next year, that this is brought up because somebody's dropping the ball. And I'd like to see the 101st Airborne brought in with the Marines. Thank you.
Commissioner Nosset.
Yes, this is a little bit of levity, I think. Post office not delivering something in 6 weeks, understandable. But for the IRS to hire 86,000 new IRS agents, and I'm still waiting for my 2019 refund.
Okay. So, Commissioner Tarkanian, anything else? Okay. So, with that, it's time for us to take action on this. So I'll entertain a motion to approve the canvass of the returns of the November 18, 2022 general election, including enter an abstract of the results in the board's records, and order the county clerk to certify the abstract as well as transmit a mechanized report of the abstract to the Nevada Secretary of State in compliance with NRS 293.387. Entertain a motion.
Make a motion with what you just said.
Okay. Okay. A motion by Commissioner Tarkanian, seconded by Commissioner Ingalls on the motion just stated. So, sensing no further discussion, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
We going to get a vote out of Mr. Rose?
He said he's voting yes.
Okay.
But he's dropping in and out.
Okay. Okay. So you heard a yes. So we'll call that a 5-0 vote. Okay. Thank you, Ms. Bergens, and once again, incredible job, and we appreciate having you as our clerk treasurer and your staff, and incredible job. So.
And thank
Please
you,
pass
and
that
to the
along.
public for trusting me for another 4 years. I'm excited.
Yep, okay, okay. And we'll go into closing public comment at this time. At this time, public comment will be taken on those items that are within the jurisdiction and control of the Board of Commissioners, or those agenda items where public comment has not already been taken. Is there any public comment here in chambers? Sensing none, Ms. Johnson, is there any public comment online?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Marcia Johnson for the record. At this time, there's no public comment online.
Okay, I'll bring it back to the board. I did want to make one announcement. Yesterday, we had a number of public comments regarding the Highway 50 corridor plan by NDOT, and we had previously, it had been indicated to us that they would be making a formal report to this board on at the Board of Commissioners meeting on December the 1st. We have come to the understanding that they have decided to slow down the process on that report and on that process, and will not be back to the board until after the 1st of the year. So those members of the public who thought that they were going to be here on December 1st for a report, we can tell them that they should be alerted to the fact that we will not be discussing that item or seeing that item on December 1st. So other than that, thank you very much once again, and appreciate your attendance, and the meeting is now adjourned. Thank you. Adjourned.
Recording stopped.